I was just walking down a block with my family. And, your typical Chabad guy, white beard, stopped in his tracks, just staring, slack-jawed, open mouth, while we crossed the street. And I turned around and waved to him and said, Shabbat Shalom. If you can stare, you can say hello. So he figured out how his mouth worked. He kept on with his day. But that was yesterday. That was like this past week. The way people think about the American Jewish narrative, or just the Jewish narrative in general, is generally a Eurocentric, Ashkenormative lens. Jewish is like Bagel and Lox, Woody Allen, and Barbra Streisand. And it's very highly cognitively dissonant. Jewish stereotypes are Eurocentric. Like, what's the stereotype of a Black Jewish person? Or an Asian Jewish person, or a Hispanic Jewish person? None of those exist, because they don't think that we exist enough to even make a caricature of us. I grew up in the mid to late 80s, family of 7. We were one of the 3 African-American Chabad families of Crown Heights. Most people who are Black and Jewish either have a non-Jewish Black parent and a Jewish parent that is non-Black. Both my parents were African-American and Jewish, and so it was sort of weaved into both of who they were. For Shabbats, we'd have to stand up and give sort of a summary of the weekly Torah portion. And on Sundays, as a family, we watch on PBS little civil rights movements, like mini documentaries. So it was very much fully integrated in both of our identities. There's this sort of perception that race isn't a Jewish problem because Judaism doesn't concern itself with race. There's also the greater narrative saying that Jews aren't white, yet they don't seem to realize the double standard when somebody like myself walks into a room and it's like, how are you Jewish? Because I don't look white. It's weird sort of circular logic, which prevents real substantive conversations of race from happening. There's this passage, if God had not saved us, then us, our children, and our children's children would still be slaves in Egypt. And as someone African-American, that resonates very differently than it does to someone who isn't Jewish, because we see the entire structure of a country where, we were generous enough to give you, freedom, but let's roll back some of that affirmative action, or let's throw in some policing based on slave codes and all those things. And so that passage illustrates very succinctly the African-American experience for us. How do I see my Jewishness? It's just my Jewishness. It's, I can't untangle that. It's like asking the color purple to untangle the red from the blue. It's purple. That's what it is. The Jewish community needs to understand there's not one way to look Jewish. The African-American community needs to learn it's not one way to be authentically Black. And anyone else in between doesn't fall into those two camps, to break down those sort of stereotypes and monoliths that they hold